Hello. The Plants vs. Zombies series includes more than 10 games, which is quite a lot for a game about zombies being defeated by plants. Each of these games has its strengths and weaknesses, but some have more flaws than others. Today, I'm ranking all PvZ games in a tier list. I'll try to be as objective as possible and judge the games fairly, without relying too much on my personal opinion. So, let's not waste time. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. PvZ 1. Kicking off our tier list is the first PvZ game, which is an absolute classic. Any true PvZ fan started with this game, even if it's not their favorite entry. Released all the way back in 2009, PvZ 1 is older than many people watching this video, yet it's still relevant today, something not many games can achieve. And that's no surprise. First, this is the game that started it all. Every PvZ installment is built upon its foundation. Second, PvZ 1 is nearly perfect in terms of design. Just think about it, the game has a great balance. You get a new plant, and in the next level, a new zombie appears that the plant is particularly useful against. This encourages players to use all plants strategically, and as a result, almost every plant has a purpose. Additionally, the difficulty is well balanced. There are no overwhelming zombie waves that make levels frustratingly hard. Sure, some levels are challenging, but none are impossible. You'll beat them after a few tries. The game also keeps things fresh with new locations every 10 levels, each with unique mechanics and gimmicks, which is another plus. On top of that, PvZ 1 offers a ton of extra content, minigames, challenges, and various quests. Completing all side content takes almost as long as the main campaign, which is a huge bonus. The only real downside is the graphics, but given that the game is 15 years old, it's understandable. Plus, many players still like the art style, and mods can easily improve the visuals. For these reasons, PvZ 1 undoubtedly belongs in the best tier. PvZ 2. Another PvZ classic, PvZ 2 was released after EA acquired PopCap, meaning it had more monetization elements. However, the game is still great. Its first major advantage is the improved visuals. One of the biggest drawbacks of the original game was fixed, with PvZ 2 featuring clean, HD quality graphics. The second major improvement is the addition of a storyline. While PvZ 1 had some narrative elements, PvZ 2 takes it to the next level, with nearly every level featuring dialogue between Crazy Dave, Penny, or Dr. Zomboss. The game also greatly expanded the PvZ lore and fueled fan theories, thanks to cryptic hints and mysterious lines from Zomboss and Dave. Another highlight is the sheer amount of content, new worlds, mechanics, and plants. Features like plant upgrades, fertilizers, and buffs add more strategic depth. However, the game also became more difficult, and the balance suffered. If you're playing PvZ 2 for the first time, expect some tough levels. Many objectives are challenging, even after multiple attempts. But honestly, I don't consider this a major downside. Yes, the balance isn't as tight as in the first game, but the difficulty keeps things engaging. The real downside is the introduction of microtransactions. Paying makes the game much easier, but fortunately, you can still complete it without spending money. All in all, PvZ 2 deserves a spot in the best tier as well. PvZ 3. Now, this one doesn't have as many positives. Being a new installment, you'd expect it to surpass the previous games, but that's not the case. PvZ 3 went through multiple development phases, each met with criticism, and for good reason. Initially, the game was designed for vertical screens, making it feel like a generic mobile rip-off rather than a true PvZ sequel. The shift to 3D graphics changed the look of zombies and plants, making them almost unrecognizable compared to the previous games. In theory, updating the visuals isn't a bad thing, but PvZ 3 barely resembled its predecessors. The gameplay also felt empty. Unlike previous games, where levels had weight and strategy, PvZ 3 levels felt repetitive, like an assembly line of generic encounters. However, the Welcome to Zomburbia update improved the game significantly. It reintroduced horizontal screen orientation, added a storyline, and improved the visuals. Despite this, many issues remain. One major flaw is the lack of plant selection. Players can't choose their own plants, as the game automatically assigns them. Why? No idea. Additionally, PvZ 3 severely lacks new content. For a brand new installment, it features surprisingly few new plants, zombies, or game modes. That said, since the game is still in soft launch, there's hope that the developers will listen to feedback and make improvements. For now, PvZ 3 goes in the could be better tier. PvZ Adventures. This was a Facebook-exclusive PvZ game that shut down on October 12, 2014. Unlike traditional PvZ, it featured a different gameplay style. Zombies moved along designated lanes instead of a standard long grid. These lanes varied in direction, sometimes crossing over each other, adding a unique twist. That's the translation so far. If you need further adjustments or want me to continue, let me know. On the lanes, you can only plant defensive and explosive plants, while attacking and sun-producing plants can only be placed near the paths. To be honest, this game feels more like PvZ 3 than PvZ 3 itself. It seems like the developers took inspiration from PvZ Adventures when creating PvZ 3, but the execution turned out much worse. First, the visuals in PvZ Adventures are far superior to PvZ 3. Not in terms of innovation, but in terms of staying true to the classic PvZ style. Looking at this game, you could easily mistake it for PvZ 3. Second, PvZ Adventures introduced more new plants and zombies than PvZ 3, which is ironic for a game that came out years earlier. And third, it doesn't feature the dumbed-down mechanics of PvZ 3, like the altered sun system and automatic plant selection. For these reasons, PvZ Adventures goes into the solid tier. PvZ Garden Warfare. This is a PvZ game in the third-person shooter genre. Honestly, I really like this game. I always wanted to see PvZ in 3D, especially with the ability to play as both plants and zombies. But despite its cool concept, the game had many flaws. First, it was multiplayer only, there was no story mode, just cooperative play. Second, unlocking character variants was frustrating. Each plant and zombie had different skins that acted as upgraded versions of the base character. To unlock them, you had to buy sticker packs with coins earned in matches. However, these character pieces were rare, meaning you had to play dozens of matches just to unlock a single variant. This made the game repetitive, as different character classes were hard to obtain. Third, there were major balance issues. The game wasn't perfectly balanced from the start, but things got even worse when EA introduced microtransactions. Players who spent money could unlock stronger character classes faster, giving them an unfair advantage. Even though the game was fun, these issues drag it down, so it goes in the could be better tier. PvZ Garden Warfare 2. The sequel to Garden Warfare improved on the first game in many ways. The graphics were enhanced, new plants and game modes were added, and most importantly, an offline mode and a story campaign were introduced. However, many of the previous game's problems remained, especially balance issues, since microtransactions were still present. That said, earning in-game currency became easier, making character progression less of a grind. With more modes, more character classes, and overall better gameplay, PvZ Garden Warfare 2 was a step in the right direction. However, its biggest issue now is low player activity and lack of updates. If the developers hadn't abandoned it, it could have been much better. Despite that, it still deserves a spot in the solid tier. PvZ Battle for Neighborville. Another third-person shooter in the PvZ series, Battle for Neighborville was supposed to be an improved version of Garden Warfare, but instead, it launched in an unfinished state with numerous issues. Yes, it introduced a long-awaited story mode and improved co-op gameplay. But at the same time, it had worse balance. Aiming was no longer as important since the game favored higher-level characters over player skill. I won't go into all the problems, but honestly, there's no need. Just a year after its release, PopCap announced that they were shutting down the game due to its commercial failure. For that reason, it goes straight into the bad tier. PvZ Heroes. This is a mobile collectible card game. The story follows the classic PvZ conflict, but with a twist drive. Zomboss invents the Zombot Herotron 5000, which accidentally transforms a regular zombie into a superhero called Super Brains. Overexcited, Super Brains presses a "do not press" button, causing the Zombot to malfunction and zap several plants, turning sunflower, walnut, Bonk Choi, and P-Shooter into plant heroes. The Zombot explodes, spreading the transformation to other plants and zombies worldwide, sparking a new kind of battle. The main objective of the game is to defeat the enemy hero by reducing their health to 0 or forcing them to run out of cards. Players use various cards to attack, defend, and strategize, making each match unique. PvZ Heroes is an online multiplayer game, meaning you'll always be playing against real people. Overall, it's a simple yet fun card game. It doesn't compare to PvZ 1 or PvZ 2, but it's a great way to kill time, and microtransactions aren't too intrusive. You can enjoy the game without spending money. For that reason, it belongs in the solid tier. Final thoughts. So, that's my PvZ tier list. Let me know in the comments which rankings you agree with and which ones you don't. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my other content. And with that, I'll wrap things up. Thanks for watching, good luck, and goodbye.